The morning sun cast long shadows across the courtyard of Lincoln High School as 17-year-old Maya Rodriguez carefully adjusted her backpack straps. Her artificial leg, a sleek titanium and carbon fiber prosthetic that had cost her family months of saved wages, felt secure beneath her jeans. She had perfected the art of walking so naturally that most people never noticed her disability unless they looked closely. Maya paused at the school's main entrance, watching clusters of students chat and laugh before first period. 3 years at Lincoln High had taught her to navigate these social waters carefully. She wasn't popular, but she wasn't invisible either. Her grades placed her in the top 10% of her class, and her quiet determination had earned respect from teachers and some classmates. Maya called Jessica Chen, one of the few students who had befriended her during sophomore year. "Wait up!" Jessica jogged over, her long black hair bouncing with each step. "Did you finish the calculus homework? Problem 15 was giving me nightmares." "I can show you my work before class," Maya replied, grateful for the normal interaction. Jessica was one of the few people who saw past the prosthetic to the person underneath. As they walked through the hallway toward their lockers, Maya noticed the usual morning chaos. Freshmen nervously clutched their schedules, seniors strutted with the confidence of impending graduation, and teachers hurried past with coffee cups and lesson plans. It was a typical Tuesday in March, nothing special or remarkable. Maya's locker was located in the older section of the building, where the hallways were narrower and the foot traffic heavier. She spun her combination lock with practiced ease, retrieving her physics textbook and calculator. The familiar routine provided comfort in an environment where she often felt like an outsider looking in. "Rodriguez." The voice cut through the morning chatter like a blade. Maya's stomach clenched as she recognized the tone before turning around. Brandon Mitchell stood 15 feet away, flanked by his usual crew of followers. At 18, Brandon was everything Maya was not: wealthy, popular, and cruel in ways that seemed to come naturally to him. His father owned 3 car dealerships in town, and Brandon drove a different luxury vehicle each week, as if to remind everyone of his family's status. "I heard you're planning to try out for the academic decathlon team," Brandon continued, his voice carrying just loud enough for nearby students to hear. "Isn't that cute? The GIMP wants to compete with real students." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her expression neutral. She had learned long ago that reacting to Brandon's taunts only encouraged him. Instead, she continued organizing her locker, hoping he would lose interest and move on. "What's wrong, peg leg? Cat got your tongue?" Brandon's friend Tyler laughed at his own cruel joke, encouraging Brandon to continue. "You know what I don't understand," Brandon said, stepping closer to Maya's locker, "is why the school pretends you're normal. I mean, look at you. You're literally broken. Damaged goods." Jessica stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. "Leave her alone, Brandon. You're being disgusting." "Oh, look," Brandon smirked, "the GIMP has a protector." "How sweet. Tell me, Jessica, do you help her with everything? Does she need assistance getting dressed in the morning?" Maya finally turned to face him, her dark eyes steady despite the humiliation burning in her chest. "I don't need anyone's help, Brandon. Especially not yours." "Really?" Brandon's expression shifted, becoming more calculating. "Prove it." Before Maya could react, Brandon's foot shot out, connecting with her prosthetic leg just above the knee joint. The impact was precise and deliberate, targeting the most vulnerable connection point of her artificial limb. Maya heard the sickening crack before she felt anything else. The carbon fiber housing split along a stress line, and the electronic knee joint sparked once before going completely dead. Her leg, which had been her lifeline to normalcy, suddenly became a useless weight dragging her downward. She crashed to the floor hard, her books scattering across the hallway. The prosthetic leg bent at an impossible angle, clearly damaged beyond any quick repair. Students nearby gasped and pointed, some pulling out phones to record the spectacle. "Oops," Brandon said with mock concern. "Looks like your leg is even more broken now. Maybe you should have stayed home where you belong." Maya stared at the destroyed prosthetic in shock. This wasn't just any artificial leg. It was a state-of-the-art device that had taken her mother, Maria, 2 years of double shifts at the diner to afford. The microprocessor-controlled knee alone had cost $15,000. The entire leg represented nearly $30,000 that her family had scraped together through sacrifice and determination. "You have no idea what you just did," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible above the growing crowd of onlookers. "What did you say?" Brandon leaned down, his face twisted with satisfaction. Maya looked up at him from the floor, surrounded by her scattered belongings and the remains of her mobility. For the first time in 3 years, she didn't try to hide her disability or minimize her difference. Instead, she felt something new rising within her, a cold, focused anger that had nothing to do with shame and everything to do with justice. "I said you have no idea what you just did," Maya repeated, her voice stronger now. "But, you're going to find out." Jessica knelt beside Maya, trying to help her up while shooting daggers at Brandon with her eyes. "You're a monster," she told him. "An absolute monster." Brandon shrugged, apparently unmoved by the destruction he had caused. "Monsters don't exist, Jessica. But cripples do, and they should know their place." As Brandon and his friends walked away, laughing and high-fiving each other, Maya remained on the hallway floor. Teachers were arriving now, drawn by the commotion. Mr. Peterson, her physics instructor, immediately called for the school nurse and began dispersing the crowd. "Maya, are you hurt?" he asked, genuine concern in his voice. Maya shook her head, though pain shot through her hip where she had landed. "The leg is destroyed," she said simply. "Completely destroyed." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed a number she knew by heart. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Mija? What's wrong? You sound upset." "Mom," Maya said, fighting to keep her voice steady, "someone broke my leg. The prosthetic. It's ruined." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for several seconds before Maria Rodriguez spoke again. Her voice was different now, carrying a weight Maya had never heard before. "Who did this to you?" "Brandon Mitchell. He kicked it deliberately, in front of everyone." Another pause. When Maria spoke again, her words were carefully measured. "Stay exactly where you are. Don't move. Don't speak to anyone in authority until I get there. Do you understand?" "Mom, I'm okay." "I just need," Maya Elena Rodriguez, her mother interrupted, using her full name in a way that commanded attention. "Listen to me very carefully. Do not speak to the principal. Do not sign any papers. Do not accept any apologies. I am coming to get you right now, and we are going home." "But, Mom, I have classes." "Not today, Mija. Today everything changes." The line went dead, leaving Maya staring at her phone in confusion. Her mother had sounded different, almost like a stranger. There had been something in Maria's voice that Maya had never heard before: power. As she waited for help to arrive, Maya looked down at her destroyed prosthetic leg. The titanium framework was bent, the carbon fiber housing cracked beyond repair, and the electronic components were completely dead. It would take months to get a replacement, even if they could afford it. But, somehow, for the first time since Brandon had targeted her, Maya didn't feel hopeless. Her mother's reaction had been strange, almost as if this attack on Maya had triggered something larger. Something that Brandon Mitchell and his privileged friends couldn't possibly understand. Jessica helped Maya to the nurse's office, where she waited for her mother to arrive. Other students kept peeking in, some offering sympathy, others simply curious about the girl whose leg had been shattered in the hallway. Maya closed her eyes and tried to process what had just happened. In one moment of cruelty, Brandon had destroyed not just her prosthetic, but her carefully constructed normal life. Tomorrow, she would have to face school in a wheelchair or on crutches, unable to hide her disability behind the illusion of wholeness. But something told her that by tomorrow, everything would be different. Her mother's voice had carried promises that Maya didn't understand yet, but she felt them in her bones like a coming storm. Brandon Mitchell thought he had broken her. Instead, he had broken something much more dangerous: the careful silence that had protected him from consequences he never knew existed. Outside the nurse's office, Maya could hear the whispers starting. The story was already spreading through social media, shared and reshared by students who had witnessed the attack. But they were only seeing the surface of something much deeper. Maya Rodriguez was about to discover that sometimes the most powerful people are those who choose to appear powerless, and that her quiet mother had secrets that could shake the very foundations of their small town. The broken prosthetic leg lying beside her was just the beginning. Maria Rodriguez arrived at Lincoln High School exactly 23 minutes after Maya's phone call. Maya had been watching through the nurse's office window, expecting to see her mother's familiar beat-up Honda Civic pull into the visitor parking lot. Instead, a sleek black Mercedes SUV glided to a stop directly in front of the main entrance. The woman who stepped out of the driver's seat looked like Maria Rodriguez, but everything else was wrong. Gone were the worn jeans and diner uniform that Maya was accustomed to seeing. Instead, her mother wore a perfectly tailored charcoal gray business suit, diamond earrings that caught the afternoon light, and Italian leather shoes that probably cost more than most students' cars. "That can't be my mom," Maya whispered to herself, pressing closer to the window. But it was. Maria Rodriguez walked through the school's front doors with the confident stride of someone accustomed to being in charge. Her long black hair, usually pulled back in a practical ponytail, was styled in an elegant chignon. She carried herself differently too, with the bearing of authority that Maya had never seen before. Within minutes, Maya could hear raised voices coming from the direction of the principal's office. Her mother's voice, still recognizable despite the circumstances, cut through the hallway chatter with crisp, professional authority. "Mrs. Rodriguez," the school nurse said gently, "your mother is here. She's speaking with Principal Davis right now." Maya nodded, still trying to process the transformation she had witnessed. The woman arguing with school officials down the hall bore little resemblance to the tired waitress who worked double shifts to pay their bills. This version of her mother sounded like she was used to being listened to, respected, even feared. 15 minutes later, Maria appeared in the nurse's office doorway. Her expression softened the moment she saw Maya, and, for an instant, she was just a concerned mother again. "Mija," she said, rushing to Maya's side and carefully examining her for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you anywhere else?" "I'm okay, Mom. Just my hip is a little sore from falling." "But the leg?" Maya gestured helplessly at the destroyed prosthetic. Maria's face hardened as she examined the damage. The expensive device was clearly beyond repair. "This was deliberate," she said quietly, running her fingers along the crack in the carbon fiber. "He knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage." "How could you tell?" "Because," Maria said, her voice taking on that unfamiliar edge again, "I know about precision and targeting." "We're going home now." "But, Mom, I have afternoon classes, and I need to figure out how to get around school tomorrow." "Maybe I can borrow a wheelchair until we can save up for repairs." Maria interrupted, "You're not coming back to this school." "What?" "Mom, I can't just drop out. I'm a senior. Graduation is only 3 months away." Maria helped Maya stand, supporting her weight as they prepared to leave. "You're not dropping out, Mija. You're transferring to somewhere that deserves to have you as a student." As they made their way through the hallway, Maya noticed how other students reacted to her mother's presence. Teachers who barely acknowledged Maya suddenly appeared in doorways, watching Maria Rodriguez with expressions of surprise and confusion. Even Principal Davis emerged from his office, following them at a respectful distance. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Principal Davis called out, "perhaps we could discuss this further." "I'm sure we can reach some accommodation." Maria turned around so quickly that the principal actually took a step backward. "Mr. Davis, I have made my position perfectly clear. My daughter will not be returning to this institution. I will be in touch with my legal representatives regarding this incident." "Legal representatives?" Principal Davis looked genuinely alarmed. "Mrs. Rodriguez, surely we can handle this internally. Student disciplinary issues don't typically require." "This stopped being a student disciplinary issue the moment that boy deliberately destroyed $30,000 worth of medical equipment," Maria said coldly. "What we have now is assault, destruction of property, and a clear pattern of disability discrimination that your administration has failed to address. Maya stared at her mother in shock. How did she know the exact cost of the prosthetic? And when had Maria Rodriguez, waitress at Murphy's Diner, learned to speak like a lawyer? Furthermore, Maria continued, I will be filing a formal complaint with the State Education Department regarding this school's failure to provide adequate protection for students with disabilities. I trust you understand the implications of that investigation. Principal Davis was practically wringing his hands. Mrs. Rodriguez, please, let's not escalate this unnecessarily. I'm sure the Mitchell Boyce family would be willing to cover the replacement costs. The Mitchell family? Maria's laugh was sharp and humorless. Mr. Davis, you have no idea what you're dealing with. But you're going to learn. They reached the main entrance, and Maya caught a glimpse of the Mercedes SUV waiting outside. The vehicle was immaculate, with tinted windows and chrome details that gleamed in the afternoon sun. This was not a car that belonged in the faculty parking lot of Lincoln High School. Mom, Maya whispered as they approached the SUV, whose car is this? Mine, Maria replied simply, clicking a button on a key fob that Maya had never seen before. The vehicle's lights flashed and doors unlocked with a soft electronic chirp. Since when do we own a Mercedes? Maria helped Maya into the passenger seat, carefully adjusting the seat to accommodate her injured leg. Since always, Mija. I've just been keeping it in storage. The interior of the SUV was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. The seats were genuine leather, the dashboard featured a large touchscreen display, and the cabin smelled of expensive materials and careful maintenance. This was a vehicle that cost more than most families made in a year. As Maria started the engine, Maya noticed her mother's hands. The calluses from years of carrying heavy plates and cleaning tables were still there, but now she also wore rings that Maya had never seen before. Not just any rings, either. These were serious pieces of jewelry, the kind that suggested wealth and status. Mom, I don't understand what's happening. This car, your clothes, the way you talk to Principal Davis, who are you? Maria pulled out of the school parking lot, handling the luxury SUV with practiced ease. I'm your mother, Maya. I've always been your mother. Everything else I've kept hidden to protect you. Protect me from what? From people like Brandon Mitchell. From the complications that come with our real life. Maria glanced at her daughter, her expression softening. Mija, there are things about our family that you don't know. Things I hoped you would never need to know. They drove through the familiar streets of their neighborhood, but, instead of turning toward their modest apartment, Maria continued straight. Maya had assumed they were going home to figure out their next steps, but they seemed to be heading toward the wealthier section of town. Where are we going? Home, Maria said simply. Mom, our apartment is back that way. That's not our home, Maya. That's where we've been staying while I worked at the diner. Our real home is up ahead. Maya felt like she was living in a dream, or possibly a nightmare. Nothing her mother was saying made sense. They lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above Mrs. Chen's grocery store. Her mother worked as a waitress to pay their bills. They shopped at discount stores and counted every penny. The Mercedes turned into an upscale neighborhood that Maya had only seen from the school bus. The houses here were massive, set back on manicured lawns behind iron gates and tall hedges. These were the homes of doctors, lawyers, and business owners. Not the homes of waitresses and disabled high school students. Maria pulled up to a gate that looked like something from a magazine. The wrought iron barrier was at least 10 feet tall, decorated with elegant scrollwork and flanked by stone pillars topped with security cameras. She rolled down her window and pressed her palm against a scanner mounted on a post. Welcome home, Ms. Rodriguez, said a computerized voice as the gates swung open silently. Maya's mouth fell open as they drove up a winding driveway toward a house that belonged in a movie. The structure was a blend of modern and traditional architecture, with tall windows, stone accents, and a circular drive centered around a fountain. The landscaping was perfect, with precisely trimmed hedges and seasonal flowers arranged in professional displays. Mom, Maya breathed, what is this place? This is our home, Mija. This is where we really live. Maria parked the Mercedes in front of a three-car garage, next to what Maya recognized as a classic Porsche and a newer BMW. The garage doors were made of wood and glass, revealing a pristine interior that looked more like a showroom than a storage space. I don't understand, Maya said, making no move to get out of the car. We can't afford this. You work at Murphy's Diner. I've seen the bills. I know how hard it is for us to pay rent on the apartment. Maria turned in her seat to face her daughter directly. Maya, listen to me carefully. I have never worked at Murphy's Diner because we needed the money. I worked there because I needed to understand something important. Understand what? I needed to understand what it was like to be powerless. I needed to know what life was like for people who don't have advantages. And I needed to raise you with an understanding of struggle and perseverance that you could never learn from a place like this. Maria gestured toward the mansion rising in front of them. I wanted you to develop strength, character, and empathy. I wanted you to know the value of hard work and kindness. I wanted you to become the kind of person who would never deliberately hurt someone the way that boy hurt you today. Maya shook her head, still unable to process what she was seeing. So we're rich? We've been rich this whole time? Not rich, Mija. Wealthy. There's a difference, and you're about to learn what it means. The front door of the house opened, and a woman in a crisp uniform emerged. She looked to be in her 50s, with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun and the efficient manner of someone accustomed to managing important tasks. Ms. Rodriguez, the woman called out, welcome home. I've prepared the blue bedroom for Maya, and Dr. Henderson is standing by for a medical consultation whenever you're ready. Thank you, Elena, Maria replied, as if having household staff was the most natural thing in the world. Please ask Dr. Henderson to meet us in the study in 30 minutes. And contact the prosthetics specialist in Chicago. I want Maya fitted for the best available technology within the week. Maya felt dizzy. Chicago? Mom, that would cost a fortune. No, Mija, Maria said gently, it would cost about $50,000. For us, that's not a fortune. That's a Tuesday. As they walked toward the front door, Maya had to lean heavily on her mother for support. The destroyed prosthetic made walking nearly impossible, but that wasn't the only reason she felt unsteady. Everything she had believed about her life, her family, and her circumstances was crumbling around her. Mom, if we have all this, why did we live in that apartment? Why did you work at a diner? Why did I go to Lincoln High instead of some private school? Maria paused at the threshold of their home. Because, Maya Elena Rodriguez, I wanted you to understand what justice really means. I wanted you to know what it feels like to be underestimated, overlooked, and dismissed. I wanted you to develop the kind of character that can't be bought. She looked back toward the school they had just left. And I wanted to be absolutely certain that when the time came to use our real power, you would use it wisely. What do you mean, our real power? Maria smiled for the first time since arriving at school. It was not a kind smile. Mija, you know that boy who broke your leg? Brandon Mitchell? Yes. His father owns 3 car dealerships, and he thinks that makes him important in this town. Doesn't it? Maya, Maria said, pushing open the door to reveal an interior that looked like something from an architectural magazine. I own this entire town. Every single building, every business, every piece of developed land. I own it all. Maya stared at her mother in complete shock. You what? Brandon Mitchell just made the biggest mistake of his privileged little life, Maria continued, her voice carrying that cold authority again. He hurt my daughter. He destroyed her property. He humiliated her in front of witnesses. Mom, what are you going to do? Maria's smile widened, and, for the first time, Maya saw something that should have terrified her but instead filled her with anticipation. I'm going to teach him what happens when you underestimate the wrong family, Maria said. But, first, we're going to make sure you're properly taken care of. You're about to learn what real power looks like, Mija. As they entered the mansion, Maya realized that Brandon Mitchell had no idea what he had unleashed. He thought he had broken a disabled girl's leg and gotten away with it. Instead, he had just declared war on one of the most powerful families in the state. And he was about to discover exactly what that meant. The interior of the Rodriguez mansion defied every assumption Maya had ever made about her family's circumstances. The foyer alone was larger than their entire apartment, featuring marble floors, a crystal chandelier, and a sweeping staircase that curved toward the second floor like something from a fairy tale. Elena, the woman in uniform, took Maya's school backpack with the same care she might handle precious cargo. "Miss Maya," she said warmly, "it's so good to finally have you home where you belong. I've been looking forward to meeting you for years." "Years?" Maya looked confused. "Have you been working here long?" "I've been managing this household since before you were born," Elena replied with a gentle smile. "Your mother hired me when she first bought this property 18 years ago." Maya turned to stare at her mother, who was removing her business jacket to reveal a silk blouse that probably cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. 18 years? Mom, I'm 17. You bought this house before I was even born? I bought it the day I found out I was pregnant with you, Maria said simply. I wanted to make sure my daughter would always have a place that was truly hers. Elena escorted them through a series of rooms that seemed designed to showcase wealth and taste. The living room featured floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens, furniture that looked like museum pieces, and artwork that Maya recognized from art history textbooks. The dining room could easily seat 20 people around a mahogany table that gleamed under yet another crystal chandelier. The study is just through here, Elena said, leading them down a hallway lined with family photographs that Maya had never seen before. She paused to examine one image that showed a younger Maria shaking hands with a man in an expensive suit in front of what appeared to be a massive ranch. Mom, who is that? Maria glanced at the photograph with a slight smile. That's Governor Patterson, from about 10 years ago. He was thanking me for a campaign contribution. How much did you contribute? $2.5 million. Maya felt her knees go weak. Elena immediately appeared at her side with a supportive arm. Perhaps we should sit down, she suggested gently. The study was exactly what Maya would have imagined a wealthy person's private office to look like, if she had ever imagined such a thing. Dark wood paneling covered the walls, lined with leather-bound books and framed diplomas. A massive desk dominated the center of the room, topped with computer equipment that looked more advanced than anything at Lincoln High School. Maria settled behind the desk with the ease of someone who spent considerable time there. Elena, please ask Carlos to bring the financial summaries from the ranch operations. And see if Dr. Henderson has arrived. Carlos? Maya asked weakly. Your father's business manager, Maria explained. He's been handling the day-to-day operations while I've been playing waitress. My father's business manager? Mom, what happened to my father? You always said he died when I was a baby. Maria's expression grew sad but determined. Your father didn't die, Mija. He was deployed overseas when you were 6 months old. Military contractor work. He was killed in Afghanistan when you were 8 months old. Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. This was the first real information she had ever received about her father. What was his name? Eduardo Rodriguez. He was a good man, Maya. Strong, intelligent, and completely dedicated to building something lasting for his family. Maria opened a drawer and pulled out a photograph showing a handsome man in military fatigues standing next to what appeared to be an oil drilling operation. He was in the military? He was a petroleum engineer who worked with the military to secure energy resources in unstable regions. Very dangerous work, but extremely profitable. Maria handed Maya the photograph. When he died, his life insurance paid out $15 million. That was just the beginning. Maya stared at the image of her father, trying to see resemblances in their facial structure. The beginning of what? Of the Rodriguez Empire, said a new voice from the doorway. Maya looked up to see a distinguished man in his 60s entering the study. He wore an expensive suit and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to managing important affairs. His silver hair was perfectly styled, and his handshake was firm when Maria introduced him. "Maya, this is Carlos Mendoza, your father's best friend and our family's chief financial officer." "Carlos, this is my daughter." Carlos studied Maya with approval. "You look exactly like your father, Miss Maya. He would be very proud of the young woman you've become." His expression darkened. "And he would be furious about what happened to you today." "Carlos has been managing our investments and business operations for the past 17 years, Maria explained. "Perhaps you should show her the current numbers." Carlos opened a leather portfolio and pulled out several documents. "Miss Maya, when your father died, he left behind $15 million in insurance money and several promising business ventures. Your mother invested that money very wisely." He placed a financial summary in front of Maya. The numbers on the page made no sense to her at first, too large to process properly. "Our current net worth," Carlos continued, "is approximately $2 billion. Maya looked at the paper, then at Carlos, then at her mother. "$2 billion? As in, with a B?" "With a very large B," Maria confirmed. "We own a cattle ranch in Texas that covers 800,000 acres. We have oil wells on that property that produce about 50,000 barrels per day. We own real estate developments in 6 states, including most of the commercial property in this town." "Most of it?" 87%, Carlos said precisely. "Including the shopping center where Brandon Mitchell's father has his car dealerships." Maya felt like she was drowning in information. "So when you said you own the town?" "I wasn't speaking metaphorically," Maria said. "The grocery stores, the restaurants, the gas stations, the movie theater, even the land under Lincoln High School. I own nearly all of it." Carlos placed another document in front of Maya. "This is a map showing our property holdings in the immediate area. The green sections indicate land or buildings owned by Rodriguez Enterprises." The map was almost entirely green. Maya could see their neighborhood, the school district, the downtown area, and the surrounding suburban developments. All marked in green, all owned by her family. "How is this possible?" Maya whispered. "How could you own all this without anyone knowing?" "Because I used shell companies, holding corporations, and investment trusts," Maria explained. "Rodriguez Enterprises doesn't appear on any public documents. Everything is held through layers of legal entities that protect our privacy and our interests." Elena appeared in the doorway again. "Ms. Rodriguez, Dr. Henderson has arrived." "Should I show him in?" "Please do." Dr. Henderson turned out to be a distinguished man in his 40s carrying a medical bag and what appeared to be a tablet computer. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said warmly, "I came as soon as I heard." "Maya, I'm Dr. Henderson. I specialize in prosthetic technology and rehabilitation." Dr. Henderson works with military veterans and professional athletes, Maria explained. "He's going to examine your leg and design a replacement that will be far superior to what you had before." Dr. Henderson knelt beside Maya's chair and began a gentle examination. "Can you tell me about the device that was damaged?" Maya described her prosthetic, including the cost and capabilities. Dr. Henderson nodded thoughtfully. "That was actually older technology, probably 5 to 7 years behind current innovations. We can do much better." "How much better?" Maya asked. "How about we give you something that responds to neural signals from your residual limb? Something with powered ankle and knee joints that can adapt to any terrain or activity?" Dr. Henderson smiled. "I'm talking about technology that's usually reserved for special forces personnel. How much would something like that cost?" "For the general public, about $200,000. "For the Rodriguez family?" Dr. Henderson looked at Maria. "We'll call it a professional courtesy." Maya was beginning to understand that money operated differently in her mother's world. Problems that seemed insurmountable to ordinary families were simply minor inconveniences when you had unlimited resources. Dr. Henderson, Maria said, I want Maya fitted with the absolute best available technology. Spare no expense. And, I want it done quickly. I can have her in Chicago for fitting by Thursday. The prosthetic itself can be completed and delivered within 10 days. Carlos cleared his throat. Ms. Rodriguez, perhaps we should discuss the other matter. The Mitchell situation. Maria's expression hardened again. Yes, let's address that. Maya, what do you know about Brandon Mitchell's family? His dad owns car dealerships. 3 of them, I think. Brandon always brags about how much money they have. The Mitchell family is worth approximately $8 million, Carlos said, consulting his notes. Respectable for a local business family, but hardly significant in the larger scheme of things. They leased their dealership locations from us, Maria added. All 3 properties. The lease agreements come up for renewal next month. Maya began to see where this was heading. You're going to kick them out? I'm going to give them a choice, Maria said carefully. They can make this right, or they can find themselves in a very different position than they currently enjoy. Carlos pulled out another document. The Mitchell family also has loans secured against their business assets. About $6 million in total debt, spread across several institutions. Institutions we have influence with? Maria asked. Institutions we own, Carlos confirmed. Maya stared at the financial documents spread across her mother's desk. The scope of their family's power was becoming clear, and it was frightening in its completeness. They didn't just have money. They had control over the economic landscape that shaped people's lives. Mom, what exactly are you planning to do? I'm going to teach Brandon Mitchell and his family about consequences, Maria said. But, first, I want to make sure you understand something important. Maria came around the desk and sat beside Maya's chair. For 17 years, I've raised you to be kind, compassionate, and hardworking. I've taught you to value people for who they are, not what they have. That was all deliberate, Nija. I don't understand. Power without character is just tyranny. Wealth without compassion is just selfishness. Maria took Maya's hands in her own. I wanted you to develop a moral foundation before you learned about our resources. I wanted you to understand struggle before you learned about privilege. So this whole time, you were testing me? I was preparing you. Because someday, all of this will be yours to manage. The ranch, the businesses, the investments, all of it. And, when that day comes, I want to be certain that you'll use this power to make the world better, not just to make yourself comfortable. Dr. Henderson finished his examination and began making notes on his tablet. Maya, you're in excellent health, and the residual limb is perfect for the advanced prosthetic I have in mind. You'll have full mobility restored within 2 weeks. Dr. Henderson, Maria said, I want you to coordinate with our security team. Maya's safety is now a primary concern. Security team? Maya asked. Mija, you're about to discover that being wealthy comes with certain risks. People will want things from you. Some will be honest about it, others won't. We employ professionals to make sure you're always safe. Carlos packed up his documents. Ms. Rodriguez, should I begin implementing the Mitchell strategy? Not yet, Maria said thoughtfully. First, I want to see if they're smart enough to handle this appropriately. Sometimes people surprise you. After Dr. Henderson and Carlos left, Maya found herself alone with her mother in the vast study. The silence was comfortable but heavy with implications. Mom, how are you going to handle Brandon's family? That depends entirely on them, Maria said. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to call Brandon's father and invite him to lunch. I'm going to explain exactly what happened to my daughter and give him an opportunity to make it right. And if he doesn't? Maria's smile was sharp and cold. Then, Brandon Mitchell is going to learn that there are consequences for his actions that his family's modest wealth can't protect him from. What kind of consequences? The kind that will teach him to never underestimate anyone ever again, Maria said. But, Maya, I want you to understand something. We're not doing this for revenge. We're doing this for justice. There's a difference. Maya nodded slowly, finally, beginning to grasp the enormity of what had been hidden from her for 17 years. Her family wasn't just wealthy. They were powerful in ways that could reshape lives and communities. Brandon Mitchell had attacked a girl he thought was powerless and defenseless. Instead, he had just provoked one of the most influential families in the region. And, tomorrow, he was going to start learning exactly what that meant. The next morning, Maya woke up in a bedroom that felt like something from a luxury hotel. The ceiling was vaulted with exposed wooden beams, and tall windows overlooked the estate's gardens. Elena had left a wheelchair beside the bed, along with clothes that fit perfectly despite the fact that Maya had never worn them before. "Good morning, Miss Maya," Elena said, appearing with a breakfast tray. "Your mother asked me to let you know that she's scheduled a conference call with Mr. Mitchell at 11 o'clock. Brandon's dad? Yes. She thought you might want to listen in." Maya transferred to the wheelchair with some difficulty, still adjusting to life without her prosthetic. The chair was clearly expensive, with lightweight carbon fiber construction and ergonomic design features that made it surprisingly comfortable to operate. Downstairs, she found her mother in the study, dressed in another impeccable business suit and speaking quietly on the phone. Maria gestured for Maya to join her at the desk. "Yes, Mr. Mitchell, I understand your confusion. No, we haven't met before. Yes, I am Maya Rodriguez's mother." Maria's voice was polite but carried an undertone of steel. "I think it would be beneficial for us to have lunch today to discuss yesterday's incident at the high school." Maya could hear a man's voice through the phone speaker, though she couldn't make out the words. Her mother's expression remained neutral, but Maya was learning to read the subtle signs of her mother's displeasure. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm not asking for your permission or your convenience. I'm informing you that we will be meeting today at noon at the country club. Please bring your son." Maria's tone had shifted slightly, becoming more formal. "I think you'll find it's in your family's best interests to attend." More indistinct conversation from the other end. "Mr. Mitchell, let me be very clear. Your son deliberately destroyed $30,000 worth of medical equipment belonging to a disabled student. This is not a matter that will be resolved with a simple apology or a check from your insurance company." Maria ended the call and turned to Maya. "How much did you hear?" "Enough to know that Brandon's dad doesn't think this is serious. He's about to learn differently. Carlos has prepared a presentation that should help clarify the situation for them." An hour later, Maya found herself in the back of the Mercedes as her mother drove toward the country club. She had been to the building before, but only from the outside. It was the kind of establishment that catered to the town's elite, with golf courses, tennis courts, and dining rooms that required reservations weeks in advance. "Mom, are we members here?" "I own it," Maria said simply. "I bought it 5 years ago when the previous owners were facing bankruptcy." The Mercedes pulled up to the main entrance, where a valet immediately appeared to take the keys. Maya noticed how the staff treated her mother with the deference typically reserved for celebrities or royalty. "Ms. Rodriguez," the club manager said, appearing at their side, "your private dining room is ready. The Mitchell party arrived about 10 minutes ago." Maya wheeled herself through corridors lined with oil paintings and crystal sconces, following her mother toward what was clearly an expensive restaurant. She had imagined the country club as fancy, but the reality exceeded her expectations. Every surface seemed designed to showcase wealth and exclusivity. The private dining room overlooked the golf course through floor-to-ceiling windows. A table was set for 5 people, though Maya only expected 4. Carlos was already seated, reviewing documents from his ever-present briefcase. "Ms. Rodriguez," Carlos said, standing as they entered, "the Mitchells are in the main dining room. Should I bring them in?" "Please do." Maya felt nervous anticipation building in her chest. She had never been in a situation like this, where her family's wealth and power were being used to address a problem. Part of her was curious to see how Brandon would react when he discovered who he had really attacked. The door opened, and Carlos escorted 2 men into the room. Maya recognized Brandon's father immediately, though she had only seen him from a distance at school events. Robert Mitchell was a large man in his 50s, with graying hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to being important in his community. He wore an expensive suit and a Rolex watch that caught the light as he moved. The second person was Brandon himself, looking significantly less confident than usual. He wore khakis and a button-down shirt that suggested his father had insisted on formal attire for this meeting. When he saw Maya in her wheelchair, his face went pale. "Mr. Mitchell," Maria said, standing and extending her hand. "Thank you for coming. I'm Maria Rodriguez." Robert Mitchell shook her hand with the practiced smile of a successful salesman. "Ms. Rodriguez, I have to say, I'm not entirely sure why we're here. My understanding is that there was some sort of playground scuffle between our kids." "Please, sit down," Maria said, gesturing to the chairs across from her. "I think you'll find this is considerably more serious than a playground scuffle." As they settled around the table, Maya noticed Brandon staring at the opulent surroundings with obvious confusion. She could see him trying to reconcile the wheelchair-bound girl from school with this private dining room and the most exclusive club in town. "Mr. Mitchell," Maria began, "your son deliberately attacked my daughter yesterday at school. He destroyed an expensive piece of medical equipment and caused her to fall in front of numerous witnesses." "Now wait a minute," Robert Mitchell said, his tone becoming defensive. "Kids have conflicts. I'm sure it wasn't as serious as you're making it sound." "Dad," Brandon whispered, "maybe we should listen." "Brandon, be quiet," his father snapped. "Ms. Rodriguez, I appreciate your concern, but I think you're blowing this out of proportion. If there was some damage to your daughter's equipment, I'm sure our insurance can handle it." Maria opened a folder and placed a photograph on the table. It showed Maya's destroyed prosthetic leg from multiple angles, clearly documenting the extent of the damage. "This is a custom-manufactured prosthetic device worth $30,000, Maria said calmly. "As you can see, it was deliberately damaged beyond repair." Robert Mitchell glanced at the photos without much interest. "30,000? Come on, Ms. Rodriguez. I know these things are expensive, but that's obviously an inflated number." Carlos cleared his throat and placed a document beside the photographs. "This is the original purchase receipt, Mr. Mitchell. The device cost $32,475. For the first time, Robert Mitchell's confidence seemed to waver slightly. "Okay, so it's expensive. Like I said, insurance will cover it." "Mr. Mitchell," Maria continued, "this incident wasn't about the money. It was about deliberate cruelty targeting a disabled student. Your son specifically chose to attack my daughter's prosthetic leg, knowing it would cause maximum humiliation and damage." "Brandon," Robert Mitchell turned to his son, "what exactly happened yesterday?" Brandon shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Maya could see him calculating how much to admit. "It was just, she was being mouthy, and I maybe bumped into her leg by accident." "Bumped into her by accident?" Maria's voice remained calm, but Maya heard the dangerous edge creeping in. "Mr. Mitchell, we have security footage from the school's hallway cameras. Would you like to see exactly what your son did?" Carlos produced a tablet and placed it on the table. The screen showed a clear view of the school hallway from yesterday morning. Maya watched herself organizing her locker while Brandon approached with his friends. The footage was damning. It showed Brandon deliberately targeting Maya's prosthetic with a precise kick, clearly intending to cause damage. There was no ambiguity about his intentions or the deliberate nature of the attack. Robert Mitchell watched the video twice, his expression growing increasingly grim. "Brandon, what the hell were you thinking?" "She was being disrespectful," Brandon mumbled. "She needed to learn her place." "Her place?" Maria's voice had gone dangerously quiet. "Mr. Mitchell, I want you to understand something very clearly. Your son didn't just attack a disabled girl. He attacked my disabled daughter." "Ms. Rodriguez, I understand you're upset, and Brandon will certainly apologize." "Mr. Mitchell," Maria interrupted, "I don't think you understand who you're dealing with." Carlos placed another document on the table. This one appeared to be a property deed with official seals and legal signatures. Mr. Mitchell, where are your car dealerships located? We have 3 locations. One on Main Street, one on Highway 47, and one in the Westfield Shopping Center. All 3 of those properties are leased, correct? Yes, but what does that have to do with anything? Carlos pointed to the document. You lease all 3 locations from Rodriguez Enterprises. Your current lease agreements expire in exactly 18 days. Robert Mitchell's face went white. Rodriguez Enterprises? You're Rodriguez Enterprises? I am Rodriguez Enterprises, Maria confirmed. And your lease renewals are currently under review. Brandon was staring at his father in confusion. Dad, what are they talking about? They own our buildings, son. All 3 of them. Robert Mitchell's voice had lost all of its earlier confidence. Ms. Rodriguez, surely we can work something out. This is just a misunderstanding between kids. Is it? Maria asked. Carlos, please show Mr. Mitchell the loan documentation. Carlos produced another set of papers. Mr. Mitchell, your business currently owes approximately $6.2 million to various lending institutions. Those loans are secured against your business assets and real estate holdings. What does that have to do with anything? Those lending institutions are subsidiaries of Rodriguez Financial Services, Carlos explained. Which means your loans are ultimately held by Ms. Rodriguez. Maya watched Brandon's father process this information. She could see the exact moment when he realized the scope of their family's power and the precarious position his arrogance had created. You own our buildings and our loans? Robert Mitchell's voice was barely above a whisper. I own considerably more than that, Maria said. But let's focus on your immediate situation. Your son deliberately injured my daughter and destroyed her property. He did so with malicious intent, in front of witnesses, while she was attending a public school where she should have been safe. Ms. Rodriguez, please, let's discuss this reasonably. I am being reasonable, Mr. Mitchell. A reasonable response to your son's actions would be to terminate your leases immediately, call in your loans, and pursue criminal charges for assault and destruction of property. Robert Mitchell looked like he might be sick. Criminal charges? Attacking a disabled person's mobility device is a felony in this state, Carlos confirmed. The district attorney is a personal friend of Ms. Rodriguez. The room fell silent except for the sound of Brandon's increasingly rapid breathing. Maya could see him finally, understanding the magnitude of what he had done. He wasn't just facing school discipline anymore. His actions had potentially destroyed his family's business and financial security. What do you want? Robert Mitchell asked quietly. Maria folded her hands on the table. I want justice, Mr. Mitchell. I want your son to understand that actions have consequences. And I want assurance that nothing like this will ever happen again. What kind of assurance? First, Brandon will personally apologize to my daughter, in front of the same students who witnessed his attack. Second, your family will pay for Maya's new prosthetic device, which will cost approximately $50,000. Third, Brandon will perform 100 hours of community service working with disabled veterans. That's reasonable, Robert Mitchell said quickly. We can do that. I'm not finished, Maria continued. Fourth, your family will establish a scholarship fund of $500,000 for disabled students pursuing higher education. Brandon's father went pale again. 500,000? Mr. Mitchell, let me put this in perspective for you. Your family's total net worth is approximately $8 million. You're asking me to accept that your son's deliberate attack on my disabled daughter is worth less than 6% of your wealth. But $500,000 is less than I spend on landscaping each year, Maria finished. Mr. Mitchell, this isn't a negotiation. This is an opportunity for your family to demonstrate that you understand the gravity of what your son did. Robert Mitchell looked at his son, then back at Maria. And if we agree to these terms? Then, your leases will be renewed at current rates, your loans will remain on their existing terms, and we'll consider this matter closed.
And if we don't agree? Maria's smile was cold and final.
Then, you'll discover exactly how quickly a successful business can become bankrupt when it loses its locations, has its credit called in, and faces federal prosecution. The room fell silent again. Maya could see Brandon trembling slightly, finally, understanding that his casual cruelty had consequences beyond anything he had ever imagined.
We agree, Robert Mitchell said quietly. We agree to all of your terms.
Excellent, Maria said, her tone becoming businesslike again.
Carlos will prepare the documentation.
The scholarship fund will be established within 30 days, and Brandon's community service will begin immediately.
As the meeting concluded, Maya found herself studying Brandon's face.
For the first time since she had known him, he looked genuinely frightened. Not just embarrassed or annoyed, but scared of real consequences that money and privilege couldn't protect him from. Brandon, Maria said as they prepared to leave, I want you to understand something. The young man looked up at her with obvious apprehension.
My daughter has spent her entire life overcoming challenges that you can't imagine.
She's stronger, smarter, and more resilient than you will ever be.
When you attacked her, you didn't hurt a helpless victim. You attacked someone far better than yourself. Brandon nodded silently, unable to meet Maya's eyes.
As they left the country club, Maya felt a complex mix of emotions. Justice had been served, but she also felt sorry for Brandon. He had learned a harsh lesson about power and consequences, but perhaps it was a lesson he needed to learn.
Mom, she said as they drove home, do you think he'll actually change?
I don't know, Mija, Maria replied. But now he knows that his actions affect real people in real ways. And he knows that there are people in this world who won't tolerate cruelty just because it comes from someone with privilege. Maya nodded, finally, beginning to understand the true scope of the lesson her mother had been teaching her for 17 years. Power without character was dangerous, but character with power could change the world.
Brandon Mitchell had just learned that lesson the hard way.
3 months later, Maya stood at the podium in the Lincoln High School auditorium, adjusting the microphone with steady hands. Her new prosthetic leg, a marvel of engineering and technology, felt as natural as her original limb had ever been.
Dr.
Henderson had delivered on every promise, creating a device that responded to her thoughts and adapted to her movements with seamless precision. The auditorium was packed with graduating seniors, their families, and faculty members. As valedictorian, Maya had the honor of delivering the graduation speech, an opportunity that would have seemed impossible just months earlier when she was lying on the hallway floor with her broken prosthetic. Fellow graduates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system, when I started writing this speech, I planned to talk about overcoming obstacles and achieving dreams despite challenges. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. In the third row, she could see Brandon Mitchell sitting with his family. He looked different now, more serious and thoughtful than the arrogant bully she remembered. His 100 hours of community service at the Veterans Hospital had changed him in ways that were obvious to anyone who knew him before. But I realized that would be the wrong message, Maya continued.
Because the most important lesson I've learned isn't about overcoming obstacles. It's about understanding power and responsibility.
In the front row, Maria Rodriguez watched her daughter with obvious pride. She wore a simple blue dress rather than one of her expensive business suits, but her presence commanded attention nonetheless. Beside her sat Carlos, Elena, and Dr. Henderson, who had become unofficial members of the extended Rodriguez family. 6 months ago, someone deliberately broke my prosthetic leg in the hallway of this school, Maya said, her words causing a ripple of movement through the audience. At the time, I thought I was powerless to respond. I thought I had to accept cruelty as the price of being different. She looked directly at Brandon, who met her gaze without flinching. I was wrong about being powerless. But, more importantly, the person who attacked me was wrong about everything. He was wrong about me, wrong about strength, and wrong about what really matters in life. Maya had spent considerable time crafting this speech, working with her mother to strike the right balance between honesty and compassion. The Brandon Mitchell who sat in the audience today was not the same person who had kicked her prosthetic 6 months earlier. Over the past months, I've learned something that I want to share with all of you.
true strength isn't about having power over others. It's about using whatever power you have to make the world better for everyone. She gestured toward the scholarship recipients seated in a special section of the auditorium. The Brandon Mitchell Memorial Scholarship for Students with Disabilities had already provided full college funding for 12 graduating seniors. The fund, established with the $500,000 from the Mitchell family, had grown to over $2 million through additional donations and careful investment. Some of you may think that being different, being disabled, being unusual in any way makes you weak, Maya continued. I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. Our differences are often our greatest strengths, and our challenges often prepare us for opportunities we never imagined. After graduation, Maya found herself surrounded by classmates who wanted to congratulate her and express their admiration for her speech. Many mentioned how much she had changed since the beginning of the school year, evolving from a quiet, overlooked student to someone who commanded respect and attention. Maya, Jessica Chen said, appearing at her side with tears in her eyes, that was the most powerful speech I've ever heard. I'm so proud to call you my friend. Thank you, Jess. You've been amazing through all of this. As the crowd began to thin, Maya noticed Brandon Mitchell approaching hesitantly. He looked nervous but determined, carrying his graduation cap in his hands. Maya, he said quietly, could I talk to you for a minute? She nodded, curious about what he wanted to say. They moved to a quieter corner of the auditorium, away from the ongoing celebration. I wanted to thank you, Brandon said, his voice barely above a whisper. Thank me? For not destroying my family. For giving us a chance to make things right. He looked down at his hands, clearly struggling with the words. I know you could have ruined us completely. Your mother could have put us out of business and had me arrested. Maya studied his face, seeing genuine remorse and understanding that hadn't been there 6 months earlier. What changed your mind about things? Working at the Veterans Hospital, Brandon replied immediately. Meeting people who had lost arms and legs serving their country, and watching them fight every day to rebuild their lives. Seeing how much strength it takes just to do simple things that I take for granted. He paused, gathering his thoughts. There was this guy, Sergeant Martinez, who lost both legs in Iraq. He was learning to use new prosthetics, and it was so hard for him. But he never complained, never gave up, never took his anger out on other people. Sounds like a remarkable person. He was. And, one day, he asked me why I was doing community service. When I told him what I had done to you, he just stared at me for a long time. Then, he said, son, that girl has more courage in one day than you've shown in your entire life. Maya felt tears welling in her eyes, not from sadness but from recognition of genuine growth and change. He was right, Brandon continued. I spent my whole life thinking that having money made me better than other people. I thought that being different or disabled made someone weak. I was completely wrong about everything. What are your plans now? Maya asked. I'm going to study special education at the state university. I want to work with disabled kids, help them understand their own strength. He smiled sadly. Sergeant Martinez suggested it. He said maybe I could use my experience to make sure other kids never do what I did. Maya extended her hand to Brandon, and he shook it with obvious relief. I think that's a wonderful plan. And, Brandon? I forgive you. Completely. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. That means more to me than you'll ever know. After Brandon left, Maya rejoined her mother and their extended family group. Maria had been watching the interaction from a distance, ready to intervene if necessary but allowing Maya to handle the situation herself. How do you feel? Maria asked as they walked toward the parking lot. Good, Maya said, surprised by how much she meant it. He's really changed, Mom. I think he's going to be okay. And, you? Are you ready for what comes next? Maya had decided to attend Stanford University in the fall, where she would study business and economics in preparation for eventually taking over the Rodriguez empire. It was a daunting prospect, but one that excited her more than it frightened her. I think so. I've been thinking about what you said about power and responsibility. What about it?
I want to expand the scholarship program. Not just for disabled students, but for anyone who's been underestimated or overlooked. Kids from poor families, immigrants, anyone who needs a chance to prove what they can do. Maria smiled with obvious pride. That sounds like exactly the kind of project the Rodriguez Foundation should be funding.
The Rodriguez Foundation?
It's something Carlos and I have been discussing. A formal charitable organization that would allow us to channel our resources toward causes that matter. Education, disability rights, economic opportunity for underserved communities.
As they reached the Mercedes, Maya turned back to look at Lincoln High School one last time.
6 months ago, she had left this building broken and humiliated, unsure of her place in the world. Today, she was leaving as valedictorian, scholarship recipient, and heir to one of the most powerful business empires in the region. But the most important change wasn't in her circumstances. It was in her understanding of what strength really meant and how power should be used. "Mom," she said as they drove toward home, "I have an idea about the foundation."
"Tell me. What if we created mentorship programs that pair successful adults with kids who are facing challenges? Not just financial support, but real relationships with people who can show them what's possible. Like matching disabled veterans with disabled students?" "Exactly. Or pairing immigrants who've built successful businesses with kids from immigrant families. Or connecting people who've overcome learning disabilities with students who are struggling in school." Maria nodded thoughtfully. "It's a good idea.
It addresses not just the financial barriers, but the emotional and psychological challenges that come with feeling different or disadvantaged. And it could help successful people remember where they came from, keep them connected to their communities instead of just isolated in their wealth." As they pulled into the driveway of their estate, Maya realized that her mother's long-term plan had worked perfectly. Maya had developed empathy, character, and wisdom during her years of thinking they were poor. Now, with unlimited resources at her disposal, she was prepared to use them responsibly. "There's something else I want to discuss," Maya said as they entered the house. "What's that?" "I want to go back to living simply during college. Not pretending to be poor, but not flaunting our wealth either. I want to remember what it feels like to be underestimated." Maria raised an eyebrow. "That's an interesting choice." "Why?" "Because I think it will make me a better leader eventually. If I'm going to run companies and foundations that affect ordinary people's lives, I should understand those lives from the inside." "And after college?" "After college, I want to use every advantage we have to level the playing field for people who don't have advantages. I want to be the kind of wealthy person who makes other people's lives better, not just my own." Elena appeared with lunch preparations, and they settled into the informal dining room overlooking the gardens. As they ate, Maya found herself thinking about Brandon Mitchell and his transformation from bully to advocate. "Mom, do you think people can really change?" "I think people can change when they're forced to confront the consequences of their actions," Maria replied. Brandon changed because he was held accountable for his behavior and, then, given an opportunity to see the world through different eyes. What about people who are never held accountable? They usually become worse versions of themselves. That's why accountability is so important, even when it's difficult to enforce. Maya nodded, understanding that this was another lesson in the complex relationship between power and responsibility. Her family's wealth gave them the ability to enforce accountability when others couldn't, but it also gave them the responsibility to use that power wisely. As the afternoon wore on, Maya received calls and text messages from classmates, teachers, and family friends congratulating her on her graduation speech and academic achievements. Each conversation reminded her of how much her life had changed since that terrible day in the hallway. But the most meaningful contact came from an unexpected source. Her phone rang with a call from Sergeant Martinez, the veteran who had influenced Brandon's transformation. "Miss Rodriguez? This is Sergeant Martinez from the VA hospital. Brandon Mitchell gave me your number." "Sergeant Martinez. Brandon told me about you. He says you changed his perspective on a lot of things."
That young man needed some adjustment in his attitude, but he's got good potential. He tells me you're the one who gave his family a chance to make things right instead of just destroying them. I believe in second chances, especially when people show they're serious about changing. Well, I wanted to thank you for that. And I wanted to ask you something. What's that? Brandon mentioned that you're starting some kind of mentorship program. If you're looking for veterans who might want to work with disabled kids, I know quite a few of us who would be interested. Maya felt excitement building in her chest. That would be amazing. We're just getting started, but we want to create real relationships between mentors and students. Most of the guys I know would love to help kids understand that being disabled doesn't mean being defeated. Sometimes the people who faced the biggest challenges are the ones who can offer the most hope. Sergeant Martinez, would you be interested in helping us design the program? Making sure it actually meets the needs of both the mentors and the students? Miss Rodriguez, I'd be honored. After ending the call, Maya felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The chain reaction that had started with Brandon's cruelty was continuing to spread, but now it was spreading hope and opportunity instead of pain and humiliation. That evening, as Maya sat in her father's study reading about business ethics and corporate responsibility, Maria joined her with 2 cups of tea. How are you feeling about everything? Maria asked, settling into the chair across from Maya's desk. Grateful, Maya replied without hesitation. Grateful for the challenges that made me strong, grateful for the resources that let us help other people, and grateful for a mother who taught me the difference between power and strength. What is the difference? Power is what you can do. Strength is what you choose to do. Maria smiled with deep satisfaction. Your father would be so proud of the woman you've become. I hope so. I want to build something that would make him proud. Something that helps people who are underestimated discover their own power. Then, that's exactly what we'll do. As Maya prepared for bed that night in her beautiful room in their magnificent house, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she had been a quiet, overlooked student hiding her family's wealth and her own potential. Today, she was a confident young woman ready to use every advantage she possessed to create opportunities for others. Brandon Mitchell's attack had been intended to break her spirit and remind her of her supposed weakness. Instead, it had revealed her true strength and set in motion a series of events that would touch countless lives. Tomorrow, Maya would begin preparing for Stanford, where she would study business and prepare to inherit an empire. But she would also begin building something even more valuable, a legacy of using power to lift others up rather than tear them down. The girl who had once hidden her intelligence and potential to avoid standing out was ready to shine as brightly as possible, not for her own glory, but to light the way for others who needed to see that their differences were their strengths. Maya Rodriguez had learned the most important lesson of all, that true power comes not from what you can take from the world, but from what you can give back to it.